So since we've been on the topic of hell for the past 2 videos, I think it's appropriate to go ahead and talk about Lucifer. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, he who weakened the nations? This is the only verse in the entire Bible where the word Lucifer is mentioned. Did you notice which book this verse is in? The book of the prophet Isaiah, specifically chapter 14, specifically verse 12. Knowing where within the book of Isaiah the word Lucifer is located is key in understanding what Isaiah is referring to when he mentions the word Lucifer. Isaiah is very specific to whom he is speaking to as he prophesies. So just for examples, chapter 1 is a message specifically to the kingdom of Judah. Chapter 13 and chapter 14 verses 1 through 23 is specifically a message that Isaiah writes to the kingdom of Babylon. Okay, chapter 14 is specifically a message to the kingdoms of Assyria and Philistia. And these specific message that Isaiah writes to kingdoms go on through the book of Isaiah. He writes specifically to Moab, Ethiopia, Egypt, Babylon again, Edom, Arabia, Tyre, and Assyria again. So if you know what chapters and verses you're reading, you will know to whom Isaiah is speaking to. Okay, now the word Lucifer is found in chapter 14, verse 12, which means he's specifically speaking to the kingdom of Babylon. All right. Now let's read some context in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 2 through 4. Says, "Those who captured Israel will themselves be captured." Who do you think captured Israel? Babylon captured Israel. Right? So if we continue to read, "Those who captured Israel will themselves be captured, and Israel will rule over its enemies. In that wonderful day when the Lord gives his people rest from sorrow and fear, from slavery and chains, you," speaking to Israel, "will taunt the king of Babylon." Okay. Before we read how Israel will taunt the king of Babylon, we have to understand what the word taunt means. Other translations use the word proverb, parable, song of contempt to make fun of. Sing this song, mock, song of mockery, satire, and simile. They use those words instead of the word taunt. The definition of taunt is a remark intended to provoke anger. Isaiah is telling Israel to make fun of. To make fun of who? The king of Babylon. Now, it is crucial. It's very important that you understand what is written in the verses of Isaiah chapter 14, 4 through 23. All right, it's important to understand that it is specifically a mockery of the king of Babylon. Okay? The subject of the taunt, the subject of the song that Israel is going to sing is the king of Babylon. All right, I cannot overemphasize that. It is illogical and unreasonable to conclude that anyone else or anything else is being mentioned in Israel's parable about the king of Babylon. It is only the king of Babylon. More context, if we go to verse 8, it says, "Even the trees of the forest sing out this joyous song." I'm not going to sing it, but it says, "Since you have been cut down, no one will come now to cut us down." Okay, apparently trees can sing, and they are comparing the king of Babylon to a tree that has been cut down. All right, now, the king of Babylon isn't actually a tree. It's a metaphor. All right, the king is literally a human. And the trees aren't actually singing. This is all metaphor. This is all parable, satire, figure of speech, figurative language. All right. Now verses 19 and 11 say, in the place of the dead there is excitement over the arrival. Arrival of who? Arrival of the king who has been destroyed. The spirits of the world leaders and mighty kings long dead, they stand up to see you. Speaking of the king of Babylon. With one voice they all cry out. Now you are as weak as we are. Your might and power were buried with you. The sound of the harp in your palace has ceased, and now maggots are your sheets and worms are your blankets. Very poetic speech talking about the death and the burial of this king of Babylon. This describes the death of the king and the decay of his body. Satan does not have a body that can be physically buried and that can physically decay. All right. Do we agree on that? More examples, verses 19 through 21 says, you, speaking of the king who was destroyed, will be thrown out of your grave like the worthless branch, like a corpse trampled underfoot. You will be dumped into a mass grave with those killed in battle. You will descend into the pit. You will not be given a proper burial, for you have destroyed your nation and slaughtered your people. The descendants of such an evil person will never again receive honor. Kill this man's children. Let them die because of their father's sin. Now, again, Satan cannot be dumped into a mass grave with those killed in battle. Just think for a second of the implications if Satan was actually killed and buried 600 years before Jesus even entered the scene. What's the point of Jesus coming if Satan was already defeated and buried? Okay, if Satan is dead, why is he still an issue today? Also, I didn't know Satan was a father who had children. Who would have had intercourse with Satan? That's a weird thought. Okay, so let's reread verse 12 of Isaiah chapter 14. Now that we have context for this, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground? Remember how the king of Babylon was compared to a tree? And this is another one of those metaphorical comparisons. The word Lucifer has never existed before the Latin translation of the Old Testament. That word doesn't exist outside of the Latin language. Lucifer is actually made up of two Latin words. The word luz, meaning light. Those of us who know Spanish will also understand that. And the word fero, meaning to carry, to bring, or to bear. The literal translation of Lucifer from Latin to English is the light bearer or the bringer of light. The original Hebrew uses the word Hillel. Now, let's understand the original scriptures were not written in Latin, they were written in Hebrew. Now, Hillel means light bearer, shining one, or the morning star. Very similar in meaning. The majority of the English translations don't even use the word Lucifer. Majority of the Bibles in English don't have the word Lucifer anywhere in its pages. Other words that Bibles use instead of Lucifer are day star, star of the morning, light bringer, shining one, bright one, or bright star. This understanding of the meaning of the word Lucifer helps us understand the metaphor in which that word is being used. Okay, so if we translate Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 through 15, I guess from the original Hebrew and not using Latin, this is what we will read. You have fallen from the sky, O shining star, son of the morning. You have been thrown down to earth, you who destroyed the nations of the world. Babylon. For you said to yourself, this is what the king of Babylon thinks of himself. I will ascend to the sky and set my throne above God's stars. I will preside on the mountain of the gods. I will climb to the highest skies and be like God. And then Israel comes to mock the king and says, you will be brought down to the place of the dead, down to its lowest depths. All right, the king of Babylon said to himself, I am so great that my reign and my power is greater than even that of the gods. Okay, but then Israel comes around and says, nah, now you are as good as dead. And this is all mockery. This is all parable. Okay, and that's it. That's it. It's actually that simple. Lucifer is referring to the king of Babylon. Right? It actually means the one that carries light. It's the sun, the morning star. Now, in Revelation, we see that Jesus is also referred to as the morning star. So is Jesus also Lucifer? Right, the king of Babylon is not Satan. You cannot make that connection, right? Because the king of Babylon is dead and is buried. All right, it's dangerous to assume that Satan is dead, because the influence of Satan is still alive and well today. So there it is. It's not that important to one's theology to understand what Lucifer is, but I think it's interesting to see how these words influence our biblical language and how we talk about the Bible. And it's fun and somewhat important to understand these words. So hope you enjoyed that.